Liberal Party in crisis. Liberal MP breaks ranks and publicly exposes deep rift with Carney. Since Mark Carney assumed leadership of the Liberal Party and became Canada's Prime Minister in early 2025, his tenure has been marked by mounting tensions within the party and increasing public scrutiny. Carney, a former governor of the Bank of Canada with a distinguished international career, entered politics promising economic renewal, stability, and national unity. However, these promises have been overshadowed by significant internal divisions and growing unease about his leadership style and policy choices. This unrest became unmistakably clear when Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, once a trusted cabinet member, publicly broke ranks to criticize Carney's key legislation and expose deep fissures within the party, casting doubt on Carney's ability to maintain cohesion. At the heart of this internal conflict lies Bill C-5, an ambitious and controversial law intended to expedite Canada's infrastructure development and harmonize economic policies nationwide. The bill grants cabinet ministers extraordinary powers to override existing federal laws, designate projects of national interest, and fast-track approvals with limited parliamentary oversight. Pushed swiftly through Parliament with minimal debate, Bill C-5 sparked fierce criticism from opposition parties, Indigenous leaders, environmentalists, and even members of Carney's own caucus. Critics warn that the legislation dangerously centralizes power, threatens democratic accountability, and undermines environmental protections and Indigenous rights that are vital to Canada's legal and moral framework. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith emerged as the most vocal internal critic of the bill. Known for his progressive stance and principled approach, he publicly condemned Bill C-5 as a reckless overreach that undermines transparency, sidelining the voices of Parliament and the public. His bold break with party discipline sent shockwaves through the Liberal caucus and emboldened other members privately dissatisfied with Carney's top-down governance and the bill's broad powers. Erskine-Smith's dissent revealed the tension between Carney's technocratic style and growing demands within the party for more democratic consultation and inclusivity. Beyond parliamentary opposition, civil society and Indigenous groups have intensified their criticism. Indigenous leaders decried the rushed process, warning that treaty rights and consultation obligations are being ignored in favor of expedited economic projects. Environmental organizations fear that fast-tracking infrastructure approvals without proper assessments will cause irreversible ecological damage. Public protests and vocal condemnation from various communities underscore widespread frustration with a government that appears to prioritize economic expediency over democratic process, environmental stewardship, and social justice. Despite this pushback, Carney and his cabinet remain resolute in defending Bill C-5. They argue that Canada faces urgent infrastructure needs and economic challenges that require bold and decisive action. Government officials emphasize that the bill includes safeguards and ongoing consultations, promising that accelerated project approvals will generate jobs and stimulate regional economies. Yet, these assurances have done little to ease fears that the government's emphasis on speed and centralized authority threatens the very democratic norms Canadians expect. Carney's vision extends beyond domestic policy to assert Canada's presence on the global stage. His government has committed to increasing defense spending to meet international obligations, bolstering Arctic sovereignty, and diversifying diplomatic and trade partnerships. While this strategic ambition positions Canada as a more influential actor internationally, many Canadians remain focused on pressing domestic issues such as healthcare pressures, rising crime, housing affordability, and economic inequality. Critics argue that Carney's global priorities risk diverting attention and resources from urgent problems at home. Immigration and border security policies have also become contentious under Carney. The government's introduction of the Strong Borders Act tightened asylum procedures, limited refugee application windows, and expanded enforcement powers. While these measures respond to public concerns about immigration system backlogs and security, they signal a shift from the Liberal Party's traditional emphasis on openness and humanitarianism. This policy evolution has triggered intense debate both within the party and across Canadian society about balancing compassion with security and system sustainability. Carney's technocratic and centralized leadership style has been a double-edged sword. Supporters praise his focus on data-driven decision-making and streamlined governance, arguing it cuts through bureaucratic inertia. Detractors, however, criticize him for sidelining grassroots voices, limiting internal party debate, and favoring executive authority over collaborative leadership. This tension encapsulates a central challenge of Carney's tenure, reconciling the need for effective, decisive governance with the democratic values of transparency and inclusion. Meanwhile, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre has capitalized on public anxieties about crime and immigration. Though his populist rhetoric has polarized Canadians, his tough-on-crime messaging resonates strongly with voters concerned about public safety, particularly in urban centers facing rising incidents. This political dynamic increases pressure on Carney to demonstrate strong, responsive leadership amid growing public unease. In May 2025, Carney undertook a significant cabinet reshuffle aimed at renewing his government's image and tightening control. The move involved replacing several ministers and introducing new faces, signaling a reset. However, the demotion of dissenting voices like Nathaniel Erskine-Smith was widely perceived as a warning to internal critics, sparking fears that open debate was being suppressed. This approach risks deepening internal divisions at a time when party unity is vital. As Bill C-5 moves to the Senate for further review, it faces a more measured and detailed scrutiny. Senators, including Indigenous representatives and policy experts, have pledged to carefully examine the bill's provisions and advocate for amendments protecting Indigenous rights and environmental standards. This slower process could delay or alter the legislation, testing Carney's ability to sustain momentum and maintain party cohesion while navigating complex political resistance. The Liberal Party's internal struggles now stand as a defining challenge for Carney's government. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith's public dissent symbolizes broader dissatisfaction with an administration perceived by some as prioritizing rapid, centralized decision-making over democratic consultation and inclusivity. Should other MPs follow his lead, Carney risks facing escalating internal pressure that could fracture the party and stall its legislative agenda.